Hello, everyone. Taking a bit of a break from 24 Hours of Doom to talk with Doom Eternal game director Hugo Martin. Hugo, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for having me so much.
Oh, don't. You made the game. Don't thank me. I'm just sitting here playing it. Thank you for making an awesome game and taking time out of your weekend just to chat with people in the community. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's easy work for us. I mean, honestly, we love doing it for you guys, and it's our way of trying to give thanks back to the community. Kind of doing this little community world tour. Lawrence, I've seen you play the game, and I watched you play through Tag Two, and I think I'm just so appreciative of the content you've I love your content. It's awesome, and we've never had a chance to speak before, so it's just I'm pretty excited to do this.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot to me. It's one thing to play and enjoy a game, but to have the person who actually put it together, I don't know. It's full circle. It's kind of blowing my mind right now. So thank you.
Well, you got emotional at the little note that we left for the fans, and I too get a little emotional when I think about that, and like because it is our opportunity. We really do care. Obviously, everyone does. I don't know that makes us special, but we really did make this game for you guys, and we just love watching people play it. I loved that moment on your stream. Like it was so genuine, and I was like, man, this guy gets it. This is fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. Man, it's interesting you bring that up. The weird kind of two-way communication that happens there, because to me, I grew up in a small Texas town, and
You're from Texas?
yeah, I grew up in Azle, which is kind of the DFW area. No, dude, it gets weird. I actually out of college got a job in the building that id Software is in right now. I worked for Argo Data. I don't know if they're
Oh
still
my
there.
god,
Yeah, and
that's
then
amazing.
id Software moved in there like right before I quit, which was probably a good thing because if they had moved in earlier, I probably would have just creeped around the lobby, kind of like oops, accidentally dropping a resume here and there. But yeah. uh, there was my like cultural touchstones were things like QuakeCon, and then the weird bit of humanity I could get through just the tiniest straw through playing video games. So to me, to have those moments of expression from the creators to the players means a lot, and it's really cool now to think that can go back the other way. That now the creators can actually watch people play and enjoy what they've created. So it's
It's awesome. It really is. Like you see when someone connects with the content, and you so did. Like that was the coolest part. Like you got what we were trying to do. The combat puzzle make you think. Like oh, why is this? Why am I cursed? What does this mean? Well, we're just trying to engage you, like make you like it really is. I said this during the promotion of the game. We wanted to give people something that was worth their time to master, a combat puzzle that was worth their time to solve. So I think some of hey, why can't I just shoot everything with a shotgun? It's like, well, I mean, we wanted to try to give you something a little bit different. And watching you play and watching you engage with that puzzle and really get it, like, and embrace it was like so many people was just awesome. And you're, what I like too is like you're good at the game. You're really good at the game, but you're not otherworldly. Like, and that I mean that in the highest compliment. Like, you're amazing. You're way better than me. But like, and I love our black belts in our community. But like when I watch you play, like you're just really good at the game. But you're not doing anything necessarily that's like otherworldly. And that's awesome to see. Not that I don't like when people do amazing stuff, of course, but it's just cool. Like you're just a real genuine fan of the game. That's awesome.
well, thank you. Yeah, I know what you mean though. There are some people who almost like this is their craft, their trade, and I don't know that I'm
Which is
quite there, but yeah, it's
and
impressive to
that's
watch.
we wanted the game to have a really high skill ceiling, because we felt like that's what 2016 lacked. Like it's an awesome game. It stands on its own. We're not saying it's better. It was just like, well, what can we do to make this game stand on its own? And it's like let's provide them with an experience that has real depth. I think the more you give Doom Eternal, the more you get out of it. Like the first playthrough, I think you kind of skim the surface of some of the depth there. But I think we really tried to make it so the game kind of encouraged you to play at higher difficulties. Like, and I'm proud to say that, like, I think in 2016 the higher difficulty you played in, it kind of pushed you into the exploits. Like when it really mattered, you were like, I'm just gonna double shotgun super shotgun everything, which is special in its own way. But I think with Eternal, the higher the difficulty you play, the more it pushes you into all of its systems. Where it's like, hey, the ice bomb that you could ignore on Hurt Me Plenty, you kind of got to use it on Nightmare or playing through Blood Swamps, And I watched your first playthrough and your first review. I'm not like a stalker, but I have watched a lot of your content. The and I
Thank you.
watched your first playthrough, and it was awesome because then you progressively like became a black belt, of Doom Eternal. Like and now you're like amazing, but it's cool, and you're using the tools, and it is going back to your original point. I'm kind of on a rant here. Is that you we get the same kind of experience that you guys get, absolutely, through Twitch. I mean, through Twitch and YouTube. It's a fantastic time to be a creator. You get to see people like engage with your experience real time, and when they connect with it like you did, it means a lot to us.
Damn. Well, man, I was prepared to be the one who was just gushing, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. I mean, you hit on a number of topics that I'm really fascinated to ask about. I think the first one is
Yeah.
so you mentioned and you have in several other news about you came to 2016 and you made the chessboard, but then in Eternal you refined it and actually kind of added mechanical complexity, which to me is very rare when it comes to any single player experience that's sort of iterative. And maybe this is a hypothesis that needs disputing, but it seems to me that when a game company releases a single player game and it comes out and it sells well enough, the trend seems to always be with the sequel to make it more approachable, to sort of offer up the same fantasy but with less friction. That's just been a pattern that I've sort of anecdotally observed. But with Eternal, you kind of did the opposite. You took a game and actually dove into the mechanics and made it a more functionally complicated game, raised the skill cap, like you said. But that seems to fly in the face of typically what I would presume is a sort of process that makes games try to sell more as they go on and on. So,
And we did sell more doing it. That's what's the cool part is like, you could say I don't want to call it a gamble, but the approach paid off because in the stats that count, we've gone up pretty much across the board. I mean, like, slightly higher completion rates, did better in every category, really. Because I think, daughter's phone's going off. Sorry. So I think that, no, it's a good question. I mean, honestly, it was like less about like what's the safe thing to. I feel so lucky. I mean, we all do that. Like at id, we're that's not to say that companies aren't doing the same. And I mean, there's so many amazing games. I'm really hesitant to ever sound like it's like, well, id's special. Like I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima right now. What an amazing game. I mean, there's just a million amazing games. I would say, at id, which again, I don't think this makes us unique, but we are given the opportunity to. We feel like we need to innovate constantly in FPS. I think going back to the founders of the company and what they did with the original Doom, it really just stood out and was a really smart game. I think when you play the original Doom on it's funny. I think most people play Doom. Their engagement with it was, I'm going to turn on the cheats, get all the guns, get all the ammo, and just be God. And that's really fun, But when you go back and you play the original Doom legit, like it's not that different than Eternal. Like, yes, it's simpler, but like the rocket launcher really, really matters, and it's really powerful, and it'll get you killed if you try to use it like like a shotgun. Like, and the ammo's hard to come by, and it was just that right there, like the engagement around being holding the player a little bit more accountable, and it was all just done to try to increase the engagement with the game, because when we started development of Eternal, it was set up very similar, and we gave you the dash and the meat hook and stuff, but it was kind of like been there, done that. I mean, it was like, hey, more shotgun hallway stuff, that's cool, like in the glory kill system. Yeah, that's it's a couple of years old, and like it did we couldn't get by on just the freshness of push forward combat and glory kills, right? And oh, you have to be aggressive. It's so cool because you'd already done that. So what we found early on was that engagement levels, you always have to really honestly look at what you're making. By the way, we could go on for as long as you want. I'm under no sort of time pressure here. The because I already I've answered one question. We were talking for like 15 minutes, but the the engagement levels around the experience early on in development were very low, and you've got to be honest with yourself. And I was like, I don't think about this game when I leave the office. I don't want to come in on a Saturday to play it. If I observe the studio, none of the devs are playing it, and that's a problem. Because it was just more glory kills, more push forward, and so engagement became the word that we were obsessed with. We boiled it down to like, well, it's not fun. It's like, well, it is fun. I mean, that's not accurate. And looking at other games, looking at other experiences in our lives, whether it's chess or jujitsu or other games that have really, really engaged people for months and hours and years. Um, and it was starting to just really focus on that and realizing like, well, like if the player only has to do one thing to solve every problem, it leads to repetition, and repetition is a path to boredom, and it lowers engagement levels because you're not thinking. And it was just the simple aha moment of like, if we make them think, they'll be engaged. And then while we're playing for the umpteenth time during development of a Doom game, like the original Quake single player, the original Doom, and saying like the game is constantly making me think. Like I care about the plasma. I care about how often I get to use it. Finding ammo means something to me. Looking at Doom 2016 and saying, where can we mine, engagement? Like where it's almost like a field, and where's the oil? You know what I mean? Like we found some oil in 2016. That's great. There's got to be more, and the chainsaw, like having to think, having to put yourself at risk to acquire resources, giving a shit about resources, um, weapon switching and how good that feels to use more of the arsenal. All of this, just it started to create the combat loop of what we call the fun zone, where it was like, listen, I mean, every game's got one, like in not to name names, but I mean, the games I play right now, I mean, I could feel the game funneling me into their experience. If I play Ghosts and I'm like, I do this with every game. Like within the first hour, I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna play like Doom. Like I've got one tool and I'm just gonna run straight at oh, I can't do that. Like and sure enough, as these games funnel me into their skill trees and exploring and making alliances and doing things, now I'm in their loop, and I'm having fun. Um, and so Doom just tries to corral you into, the our combat loop, and we're betting on that you'll have a good time if you get there. Um, and so that was really it. It's just trying to increase engagement levels for the player, and something that had layers of depth, at higher difficulty settings as you get pushed into even more of the tools. It felt a lot like mastering something. That was what was so satisfying, is like you really do feel like you like master the loop. And then what we found was, because we didn't hand the power fantasy to you and you earn it, it felt better. Like there's something about taking uh, an elevator ride to the top of Mount Everest, and how you feel when you get there feels pretty good. We'll take some selfies and plant a flag, and I'll act like it was hard getting up there, or I make you climb it, and when you get there, you're just gonna let out this scream, and just you've conquered it. And that's what we see from our community, is that those who finish the experience and master it, they're very vocal about how much they love it, because that's how you are when you get to the top of the mountain. You want to, and what I love is people, they tend to scream out to their friends, like,
Hmm.
they extend a hand and say, you got to do this. Like, it's amazing up here. You got to do it, you know? And we're a year out from launch, and it's crazy the community that's grown around the game. It's amazing. You know, we have so many influencers and people who are streaming it, and now there's mods that are taking it to, oh my god, the craziness. Yeah, people laugh like 2 Marauders. I'm like, dude, have you seen the mods? There's five. There's 5 Marauders in the mods. Um, so yeah, it's been amazing to see, and it's everything we could hope for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct in noting that more mechanics focused gameplay is certainly it's creeping back in. But I'm free to say that it's pretty unique. I think that approach. So I guess I'm curious where those convictions came from in the first place. Did you guys just have an inkling that this kind of game will probably resonate in a different way, or like did you have to convince somebody about this? Was there an intense pitch meeting? And I don't want you to like throw anyone under the bus, but it does seem to kind of contradict what seemed to be publishing norms, is that we need to make games
Yeah,
easier, more accessible, more open. Did you have your moment where you had to put your foot in the ground and say, I believe this is going to work?
yeah. Basically, if you just look at the 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 feedback on whatever
Got to
experience you
shut
make,
down everything in your apartment, turn
there's
all the
the
lights
good, the
off.
bad, and somewhere in the middle. And for every person who loved 2016, there would be some people who said they got bored. They didn't actually, they loved it, but like by the third act, they got bored because how many times can you shoot something with a super shotgun? And so as you looked at like, well, who didn't we reach with 2016 and why? You know, and analyzing like that polygon footage of someone playing the game with a pistol, and that's not their fault. It's not an elitist game. It's not like get good or get out. That's not really it. It's like, what is the game doing to help that person get better at it? I feel like good games do that. Um, Ghost of Tsushima teaching me how to use their tools and master their tools to become a samurai. And so it was really just an honest look at the good and the bad of 2016. And realizing that we reached people. Certainly, it's a great game, but we also didn't reach some people. Like and just trying to address that and be honest about it, because you can't walk around. And even with Eternal, like I don't think I think Eternal could be better in like 100 ways. Like I mean, I am definitely at that place now. Where you're starting to do the same thing. Look at Eternal. Think about, okay, where could it be better? But going through that process with 2016, and then you just you discuss that. Me and Marty talk about it endlessly, and also I have an opportunity to watch people play games all the time. That's like all I do is watch people play games and study how they interact with games. And I could tell that like for experienced gamers and FPS players especially, it took them about very little time to find the exploit, and then that exploit would basically uh, they would we would lose them. Like
Hmm.
or they would they're a above average gamer. Like they in terms of their experience, and they upgrade their stuff, and they very very quickly min max the experience, and they're done. And it was shoring up the balance of the game to not allow that to happen. I had this thing that I drew for the team, was like just the engagement graph and what engagement looked like in an experience, and how when people first enter in, I call it the first 5 minutes of fun, and that means that that's just the game feeling polished and smooth. Which I think the craftsmen that we have at id, they're world class. I mean, like they make stuff feel really good, and so you boot up the game, it feels amazing. You slide around, you shoot things. There's the destructible demons coming apart, feels awesome. Then, I mean, quickly now it's time to like learn and master the tools, and we do that by like, we're willing to frustrate the player so long as there's like the solution is fun and enjoyable. So you come up against an enemy that has something. Hey, they don't just die to the super shotgun. I have to invest in this mod. I have to learn how to do this. I have to do something. And then they start climbing up that hill on their way to mastery, you know? And it is like a belt progression. I mean, along the way, there's a new enemy that has something else to show you. And really, your last belt test is the Marauder. I mean, the Marauder teaches you how to quick switch, and how to basically perform under pressure, and everything that you've been asked to do prior to meeting him. The Marauder says, do all of that while I'm chasing you down. Do it, get rid of everybody and face me. And I think once you learn to conquer the Marauder, you own the game. It's you are the Slayer. It's nothing can stop you, and that feels amazing. So I think it was just presenting a case about engagement in general, and then honestly, just looking at. I mean, honestly, it's you can't argue against it. That there's no, like when you look at the facts, it's like look at people playing Fortnite. It's like, well, I mean, on paper, you could say, dude, you're asking people to shoot, build, edit, and move at the same time. Like that's insane. Like, and I watch my son build, practice editing, and and he could shoot, build, and edit all at once and manage his resources. Like, and it's funny. It's like the realization that the complexity there, and obviously you can go too complex, but the complexity there is what makes it engaging to him. You know, and if it wasn't there, I'll watch him bounce off experiences that don't have that complexity. Where he's just like, what do I have to do in this? Just point and shoot. So I can't build anything. There's nothing for me to edit. Like, well, what if the guy gets the jump on me? It's like, well, then he shoots you and you're dead. It's like, so you say that's it? Like, like there's a whole generation of gamers, that are coming up that like, they want that complexity, whether it's in a League of Legends or an Overwatch or a Fortnite, these games with these high skill ceilings, these loops that they're asking you to master. And so the evidence is everywhere that like, providing the player with something to master, usually if you do it well enough, leads to increased engagement levels with your game. And yeah, that was it. It's a good question because we talked about it a lot, for sure.
Yeah, I tend to agree, which is what's been particularly confusing to me as a lover of complicated games, or at least I guess fast games. That if you look back, all of the most popular games were actually incredibly difficult. Things like Pac-Man or Tetris.
Totally.
Those games scale like crazy, but for some reason, and again, this is me with my anecdotal observations, but throughout the 2010s and into the early, like the last half of the aughts too, it seems like a lot of game designs kind of sought to strip out that aspect, to take out the fail points, and it seems like we're kind of coming out of that era now. And the game that you made seems to chiefly represent that. So I was really curious what your perspectives on that was.
I couldn't agree with you more. And also, you talk about that, and then what game changed the world? PUBG, right? And PUBG, imagine on paper, right? So we have this genre. Look, here's the thing: games with how would you describe them? Like, I would say that. Don't necessarily the game that you're describing there. Like, I don't want to name a game or anything, but like they're successful. That's the thing. Like someone makes something and it's successful, and so obviously there's a desire to want to like replicate that kind of success. But I think of it like genres of music. It's almost like just because hip hop sells a lot, should everything become hip hop? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, so we have this period where there's some games are whatever you want to call them, easy games, and then PUBG comes out, right? And what I love about it, which is typical in the art world, is that usually something outside of the mainstream is where they can take greater risks, and that's where the trends are created, right? That's where certain evolutions in art forms usually take place, because they're able to take risks. Greater risks, let's say. And on paper, PUBG is like, or just battle royales in general, is like, hey, we're going to take about 5 minutes to load into this map. It's going to take you probably like, you might scavenge for loot for like 20 minutes. I'll even let you get to the point where you find some of the best loot in the game and you're fully stacked. And then you have one life and you could die to a dude sitting in a bush. And you won't even see him. And the person's like, well, then what? Well, then you go back to it's one life. You're done. Mm-hmm. In a I would imagine if you pitched that in a mainstream meeting at that time, they'd be like, "Are you crazy?" Like, people will rage, but it's the stakes. The stakes are high, and that's where the engagement is. When I enter when I enter a race, I don't want it to be like, listen, you know what? If you just finish the race and maybe we'll give you first anyway. Don't worry. Everybody finishes first. Like PUBG is like, no, there's one winner and that's it. And what's really funny is it's not to your point, it's been around forever in everything, like not just games. So it's being I would say like being willing to hold the player accountable, to have stakes in your game, like uh that I think just feels is a genre of gaming that I don't think every game needs to be like that, but ours, happens to prescribe to those kind of stakes and holding the player accountable in that way. And you're right. Like when you look back on, I mean, I could gush about Resident Evil in the same way, right? I mean, I had this conversation with Mayo that like, I mean, God, they make a bullet count, right? It's they get it down to like a single bullet, and when you miss a shot, you're like, oh my God, like that's gonna suck. And I think that's where the engagement on that game is so high. When I play it, and I love other games that don't work that way too. I mean, it's not what I want in everything. Again, I wouldn't want one genre of music to take over everything, but or one genre of gaming, obviously. But it is where we focused on. It's good questions, Lawrence. I mean, you definitely see what we're putting down there, and all the questions you're asking is kind of like 4 years ago. That was the discussion. It was like fist on the table, like respect the players, honestly, their skill, their willingness to go on a journey with you. Really, really try to clean it up so they're not dying to bugs and problems. Like when they die, they know what they did wrong and they're anxious to go back. Have we had a patch or two where blood punch doesn't work and sometimes the game is killing you? We've done that. So my apologies. But yeah, it's like respect the gamer's time and that for people who like that stuff, provide them with that. Don't I almost feel like it's like take the swimmies off. Like leave me alone. Like let me do it. Like and let me earn this. And which just feels good.
Yeah, it does, and I'm glad that some people were willing to push that that nature of game design. I want to ask more about that in a minute, but there's another topic that's a bit closer to some things you were talking about. So you talked about basically giving people like asking people to make the hike, but then giving them some help along the way. I've had an interesting encounter with some people about Doom Eternal specifically. Because you do ask people to do more in Doom Eternal, and I think that pays off in the end, obviously. But there are people who came to Doom Eternal and then said, I just want this to be, I run up and I shotgun demons. It should be a power fantasy and just give it to me. Like, don't make me work for it. The thing is, like, Eternal does allow that through the use of cheats or difficulty. But I've also seen the same people who say that that's what they want it to be, just an easy power fantasy, also don't want to turn on the options that would make it that way. There's like an interesting bravado there. I think specifically also about Doom, a game that sort of teases and tempts you to try to do harder things, that I find that some players, maybe even longtime players that have a lot of pride in their abilities, but, don't want to be stressed when they're playing a game, find it hard for themselves to, play the game the way that they say they want to play it. Have you noticed that too? Is there like a weird cognitive gap there that
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had to do it over again, I think that Doom should have like a slaughter mode. Like I think that's where a modern game convention of like a casual mode. We're not going to put that in the game or anything, but like I wouldn't. I don't feel like we need to compromise our experience. I don't think that would compromise our experience. So I think like some some version of that, I think, kind of answers that, because again, I want Doom to be for everyone, but
well, you called it a slaughter mode, which I think right away, like that branding is so much better than like easy mode or no kill, like no die mode, invincible mode. Like those sound, to me, it just seems to be like a perceptive problem where if you call it slaughter mode, then suddenly it sounds way more badass than we're putting the training wheels back on mode, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, it's look, it is putting a staircase up to the top of Mount Everest. Like that's okay. Like some of those people want to have that kind of experience, and I think slaughter mode is more empowering. I totally agree. Like rather than like newbie mode, like or whatever. Like we don't need to be. I'm not into that. We slam our fists on the table and say, let's give them a puzzle, that's worth their time to solve a something, give them something to master, right? But that also doesn't mean that like you have to be elitist about it and say, well, what if somebody doesn't? Well, cool. Like let's, maybe next time there's a slaughter mode, and it's a balanced power fantasy that still holds you accountable, but like loosens up a bit in areas. I think that's perfectly fine. I also think that there are improvements to be made to the way we executed on this experience, and I think through those improvements, we could reach more people. Because I listen, I think getting to the top of the mountain feels glorious, and I only want to see more people get there. Without compromising. I mean, I think the thing there is like you can't compromise the experience, but I'm not really too worried about that. The I think a good example is like um we made in an update just subtle changes to the Arachnotron's behavior, very subtle, that I thought made shooting the turret just a bit more accessible. That's it. Like it's still a quick shot. It's still critical to learning that skill. But honestly, it was such an old character. Like this, Arachnotron was one of the first characters we did when we started this combat puzzle. We had this conviction about like the engagement graph and all that stuff that I said. And just over time, we got better at designing AI that like provided you with opportunities to take advantage of like windows, right, where they weren't. If you look at the armored baron, for example, he has very clear like he provides the player with opportunities to feel great and land that shot. And I think the looking back on the after DLC 2 and taking a look back at the Arachnotron again, just opening up that character and being like, man, this stuff is dated. Well,
Uh-oh. I think cell data finally got the better of us. The demons got him. The demons got him. Well, he'll be back. Yeah, big cell covering it up. That's it. Hugo was about to drop the bombs. He was about to drop the real secrets. He was about to reveal Doom 3. I don't have glasses to lower, but and just use up his cell data. Like the gate slammed shut. Here, let's call him again. Let's see if this works. Oh, it's still going. You there? Yeah, Doom 3-2. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Pink. Yeah, the ego stroking is nice. It's almost like it's hard to accept. It's too dreamlike. Ooh. Okay, he officially dropped out of the call, which is it's the first step. Oh,
then you would just
welcome back.
hello.
I think I'm so sorry, but I think you were off the call for maybe the last minute and a half.
Oh, okay. I'm on again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back on, but you might have to rewind what you were saying.
Okay. So for the armored baron, it's like the average player, like a blue belt, let's say, he could. Everything is run through the jujitsu analogies. That's how my brain works. The blue belt can shoot him with any gun to break his armor. A more advanced belt, like a purple belt, he could shoot him with the plasma because that does it faster. So simply use the right tool for the job, which is kind of a cornerstone of the Doom Eternal Dance. And then high skill players can land a skill shot, and break his armor immediately. And I like that character provides everyone with an opportunity to succeed. And then I love that like it. And this is, I don't know if you feel this, Lawrence, but like we're starting to make this hybrid first person, third person character action game. Like, you know what I mean? Like with the
Oh yeah.
combos, they're not
Hmm.
overly prescriptive, but like there's this desire to like, oh, so if I ice bomb and burn and then slam with the hammer, I'll get all this. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I love that the fact that he reforms his armor, he encourages players to use combos.
Yeah.
So uh, I think the best AI we've ever done, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, with the Sentinel hammer and just the way that that weapon moves and the air control you have, and all of that stuff, and just the timing windows of it. Yeah, you guys are approaching like Platinum Games territory when it comes down to the mechanics you have and the decisions you make. Yeah, the only thing that's kind of missing, and audio almost gets this, is third person action games. You have an external camera, so you can do a whole lot more with. I feel like, well, maybe you can comment on this. If the game were third person, I imagine you could do a lot more horrible things with enemy AI. I mean, the AI in Eternal already does a really good job of sort of anticipating your movement paths and cutting you off in arenas. But I still imagine that is there a little bit of there's got to be a little bit of kindness there in regards to like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, making the AI not. I mean, I'm sure you could program the AI so they actually could get behind the player and just murder them over and over again.
Oh God, Jake, our lead programmer, AI programmer, he roots for the AI. Like if we unleashed Jake, he would. Yes, it would be awful.
I
The
mean, it was one of the first things I noticed playing Eternal is that I was doing my 2016. I started running laps around an arena, but then imps were getting in my way. Like they were actually heading me off and blocking me. And I was like, oh, that changes it all. That was one of the first many
See,
things that
Lawrence,
changed it all.
you just nailed it. That was the other thing. Like laps in arena with the super shotgun. Like, dude, that is not worth $60. It is not. Like, there's no way that's when people ask me. Like, again, it doesn't. I still feel as I do about slaughter mode, but it's like we shouldn't make a dumb shooter. Like, I said this thinking person shooter. Like that's our jam. When I think in general, during our research phase of like, when Marty and I were talking a lot about like how to approach Eternal, the one observation we made was that when the skill requirement for a game goes down, when I'm not asking you to think quite as much in the same way, maybe, right? The content has to go up. Like the drip of content that you give the consumer has to go way up. Like there are games that are not kidding when they say they give you like a billion guns, like thousands of guns, but and that's where the engagement comes from those kinds of games. And it's amazing. I love it. I can't get enough of it, but that's not our studio. That's not what we do, like, um, and in other games, when they don't have like a bajillion, pieces of content dripping out to the player every 3 minutes, then where does the engagement come from? It comes from skill. It comes from what I'm asking you to do. Um, so yeah, and running laps around an arena, absolutely. It was. We call those. I should probably post this because I have the concept of the fun zone was a big part of those early conversations, and basically it's like this circle that we want the player to enter and kind of remain, and then around it are what we would consider frustration bumpers, and then there's a layer of education with each of those. And so you hit one when you ran around the arena and tried to do that. Like that was like the AI program specifically to say, you know what, I'm going to need you to be a little bit more considerate with how you move, because and again, the bet is always it's going to be more fun. Like this will be more fun. And I think, playing Ghosts, I get that. I feel that, like, hey, I know you want to run in and play this, like, just hyper aggressive right from the bat, but we've got some systems to show you. We've got some tools to show you. And they're right, you know. I just unlocked a couple things that are really awesome. and and I'm starting to destroy the Mongols, and it feels good. Um, so yeah, I think that's definitely the AI and the way they function is one of the many sort of like ways that we kind of corral the player into an experience that we feel like is what's nice about that is then we're able to meticulously craft that loop. I mean, you that's what I like about your stream is like you feel it, like you're analyzing it and you can see what we're doing. And even all the way to the ice bomb. I'll have people who will the ice bomb on base game, not really a requirement. I mean, there's a lot of high skilled FPS players who could basically beat the game on Nightmare without using the ice bomb too much. But boy, wait till you get to the DLC, right?
Hmm.
Um, because the DLC is like, oh yeah, so here's three barons. Like, and we had to do that because what happens is if you master the tools and you use all of them, in particular ice bomb, with basic quick switching, not even advanced quick switching, just like ballista super shotgun, something you can do on a controller. You just delete barons. I mean, they're nothing. So that's why you see so many of those guys in the DLCs. And wait till you see, dude, the master level with the hammer. That's because oh my goodness. I mean, that's a really powerful tool. If DLC 2 was designed in a way that like we wanted to reward players for mastering it, right? So by the time you get to the end, if you learn how to use it, or in subsequent playthroughs, the more you learn how to use it, you really start to feel like God. I mean, you're like just. But in order to up the challenge, like we did in DLC 1, to kind of meet people's mastery of that new tool, holy cow! I don't even know what it's going to be yet. Like we're going to be experimenting on it real soon, and I just know it's going to be a lot of dudes.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. One of the most magical parts about the mechanical system you've created is that one dude is one dude. Two dudes is not two dudes. It's two dudes together, and that's different than shooting one demon and then another demon.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's almost not necessarily exponential, but it's definitely greater than the sum of its parts when you start mixing demon types together. And certainly, one Marauder bad, two Marauders. Who could even imagine that? And then on and on. It just that's classic Doom though. You just keep pouring the demons in, and it actually changes the makeup of the soup.
What I love about Eternal, and it's again what we wanted to do from the beginning is like, um, you know, I think the shining example of where we're headed and what we wanted to do, thinking person shooter. By the end of the DLC 2, you have a flat platform, not even an arena. Couple monkey bars. Yeah, there's like two elevations. I'm talking about in Amora. Three screechers, two zombie maintains, and two marauders. And it's one of the like you're really thinking like I love watching people do that because they're immediately like, oh shit, I can't do that. Like wait, oh god, like, and where's the screechers and how do I, like, it's just I love that it's just more than just shoot this guy. Like who needs that? Like that's how I feel. I'm like, and you know what? It's a the food analogy is a good one. It's like a good sauce, right? Like yeah, it can't be all that. Like you could overdo that too. So you got to have your Hell Knights. I love the Hell Knight. The Hell Knight is just the shoot me character. Um, it makes you feel good. We those are palate cleansers, but characters like the Marauder, they just command your attention. Like, and they're like, you can't just DPS combo me into the ground like you do everybody else. Like, you have to respect me. And the dog, and like we purposely made the dog a certain height, and the whole goal was, he's a bit of an ankle biter. Like and what he does, the whole function of the dog, which works so well, is that he purposely attacks you low, forcing the player to look down and away and get his reticle off the Marauder, which then provides the Marauder with opportunities to attack. And then the Marauder is designed specifically, and all praise to the fucking AI programmers. Those guys are amazing. That he doesn't always do what you think he's going to do. Like,
Yeah.
like most of the time he does. But if it was 100%, you would delete him and it would be boring.
Mm-hmm.
It would feel super repetitive. But like that like 1 out of 4 times he's not going to open up. Like he's going to do the thing and you're going to be like, okay, and oh shit, he didn't. Like, and it's just those things that I think like as people play the game on higher difficulties and multiple playthroughs, and they really start to see it. Like just kind of it was really satisfying for us to watch people, to win people over. I've seen a lot of people make comments of like, I used to hate this character and now he's my favorite part of the game. somebody asked me the other day, like, it was Spud Hunter who loves Doom. He's beats it all the time. He's like, "What do you think about the Marauder? Like, anything you change?" I'm like, "Could you imagine Doom Eternal without the Marauder? Like, or the DLCs without him? Like, I mean, it's the going back to the analogy. I mean, it is the pepper in the sauce. Like, you got to have a little bit of chili pepper. Like it's just not going to be as good. Um, Too much of that stuff is frustrating, but yeah, it's been awesome to. You have good questions. Your questions make me go on rants because you know the game.
Oh, thank you. I I play games a lot, and I've thought a lot about them. So, and plus, kind of like you're saying, if you have a game where you're given a gun and you're told to shoot everything in front of you, that's kind of been done before. So, I don't know. I try to ask questions that haven't been asked before. Because I can.
Well,
I've never been in
well,
your position of like doing interviews, because I imagine it's just if you were like at an E3 or something, everybody's coming in. Hey, tell me about the new gun. And you're like, okay, well, here's a new
well, and
gun.
and as you said, like depending on the game, right? If it fits the game, then it's good. But like sometimes, don't you just kind of you want the game to push you a little bit more? Like whatever, you're playing an experience, and you're like, come on, like you can ask a little more of me.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you mean. All right. Well, with that in mind, there's something I've been very curious about, and that's your history, your game development history. Um, then, as nearest I could tell, you were, let's see here, you were art on I can't remember which, but Doom 2016 was your first game direction role, right?
Yes.
What did you do before that in game development?
Um, the big job was Naughty Dog.
Mm.
I Yeah, that was the job I got right out of Art Center. So I went to school for car design, and well, I have two. I have kind of two degrees. I went to school for illustration and communication design at Pratt. Basically, a 4-year degree. It's a long story. I knew at the end of it I wanted to go back to school for additional training, and the degree I wanted was from Art Center's automotive design program, but I couldn't get access to the grants because I would have already had an undergrad degree. And once you have an undergrad degree, you're no longer eligible for certain grants, which really pushed that school outside of my reach because it's a very expensive school, and it was all the way in California. Pratt's in Brooklyn, so I basically picked one of my liberal arts classes and just told the professor, like, I won't be taking the final, and I still walked in graduation, and you know, I remember the bursar's office kind of scratching their head, like, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't." When I was applying to Art Center, I was like, "I don't have that degree, so you can give me the grants now." And I was able to work for a little bit prior to that after graduation. In It's been a long and winding path, Lawrence. This is a long story. I'll try to give you the cliff notes. Um, so I worked at MTV Animation as a storyboard artist and a post-to-pose animator. That was my first job. And then I got a chance to work at Wizards of the Coast in their IP development department, where I was basically just it was like a dream job, dude. It was just like, here's our brief. We got a couple of IPs that we're developing. You're a designer, draw some shit, like work, and in that line of work, you're working on like story, and like everything kind of goes hand in hand, and you're at the tip of the creative spear, and you're working alongside the leads of the project. Typically it's just me and a director, and I'm just some kid, but you absorb things. I mean, you end up being in a room around a lot of smart people who are more experienced than you, and just picking things up about how to develop brands and properties, and basically how to lead projects creatively speaking. And you get to see kind of the ins and outs of, like, you know what works, what doesn't work, because a lot of the things that I worked on as a concept artist in that role, they didn't work. I mean, like, the goal is they all get greenlit, and it's out and everybody loves it, but that doesn't always happen. So you learn as much from the ones that didn't work as the ones that did. And then I saved up enough money and went to LA to go to Art Center. Got my training, my what I would consider to be like the foundation of my skill set in automotive design. Like, I knew I didn't want to be a car designer. I'm obsessed with cars. I don't love them enough to want to. I just want to draw Ferraris and design Lamborghinis all day, and that's not really a realistic approach to the profession of car design. Uh, and I didn't want to, but so I never had any illusions. I wanted to transfer over to the entertainment design department, or sort of transfer my skill set over to entertainment design, but learn my craft in car design because I figured if I could design a car, I could design anything, like, and that's kind of true. Like you learn design process. Like at Art Center, I was so blessed, and the older I get, the more fortunate I feel because like I'm learning. You know, the head of our department had designed the Enzo Ferrari at that time, one of the most famous supercars ever made. He's arguably one of the top designers in the world, and I'm just talking to him. He's telling me about process and themes and how to approach things, and then I'd go off to my Viscom class where I would learn how about shape and form and more design process from a guy who designs BMWs. And then after that, it's go sit with the guy who works at Honda, and he's the chief exterior designer at Honda. And then go to the product department and work with people who worked at Nike and just craziness. I mean, it was nuts. It was worth every single penny I spent, and I really it was a unique time in my life because I could just dedicate the entirety of my time. I mean, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I was alone in California. I had no friends, and I was just 24/7 just ingesting design, and in particular just design process, like how to take something from zero to something, to the shelf. And my first job out of school was Naughty Dog. I walked in there on just I had a friend. I didn't have a friend. There was someone who worked in the career office at Art Center who said, "Hey, I know a guy at Naughty Dog. Why don't you just go have lunch with him?" So I went there to the office, brought my portfolio, and then he saw it, and then he showed it to. It was cool. This is a douchey story. I feel bad.
You about to name
sharing
drop? What is it?
the story, it's bragging, but yeah, he brought the art director over. I got the job right there. It was like I walked out of there with a job, which was amazing. And
That's not bragging. That's fact.
the it was and it was ecstasy. It was amazing. Every minute I spent there was so friggin' satisfying because it was like learned my craft, got to apply my craft every day, just got good job, attaboys from my art director and my boss, and it was amazing. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to contribute, and because prior to that, I think I had imposter syndrome. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, but after Art Center, I did, and so I very quickly noticed that I fit in at a game studio really well because I was also like a crazy gamer. I'd actually put games aside at Art Center because the score. It's like we got to get grades.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up. Hold on a second. My family's coming up here. The I ended up really like my skill set. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes in life you end up at a place where you feel like it's utilizing all of your skills. And
Yeah.
and sorry, hold on a second. Give me 2 seconds.
No, take your time.
I'm gonna move, Lawrence. Give me 2 seconds.
Ah, no worries. We can talk. I've got some. Man, I have so many questions. Like the easiest interview ever, right?
Can you hear me? Is this okay?
I can. Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay, good. So yeah, I just felt like my skill set really really applied to where I was, and my experience as a gamer, and then like the Art Center training stuff, and it was all kind of coming together. And soon after that, they ended up working on Uncharted, which I got to be a part of that early pre-pro on that, and work with Amy Henning, which was amazing. Hold on. I'm assuming that's really noisy.
It's not so bad. There's a little air back there, but it's not a big deal.
Okay. So I really wanted to work on sci-fi and fantasy stuff, so I ended up moving over to Blur, where I got to, again, be a part of pre-pro on all kinds of crazy stuff and get the opportunity to work with Tim Miller, who went on to do Deadpool. And honestly, my graduating class of Blur, like the people I worked with, I mean, my one buddy directed Sonic the Hedgehog. My other buddy did all this other stuff. It's like it's there. We all still stay in contact. It was really a special time to be there, and we just learned a ton of stuff. And then left and just did freelance. I got to work on a couple of small projects and work as a contractor here and there for games, uh, ride films, commercials, advertising, car commercials, movies. Just kind of like I called it a consultancy, which is like a super fancy way of saying I was working from my home in my pajamas with a Mac. Like it is it. I even had LLC next to my name, but again, it was just me working from home. But
that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So I understand.
And then and I just at that time, and then I got to work on Pacific Rim, which again was learning from the master, from Guillermo. Again, just like feeling like, how did I get here? I mean, I'm sitting in Guillermo's house, and he never kicked us out of the room. That was the coolest thing about Guillermo. I think I try to do that for the people that did, where it's like I really just involve them in every part of the process, and that's they're picking up. If they're paying attention, then they're picking up a bunch of stuff. Like I really share with them everything, because that's how Guillermo was. I mean, I remember like executives coming in to look at our stuff, and then they would sit down around the table and the meeting would start. I say air quotes, the meeting. And under normal circumstances, like at Blur, I mean, that's when we would leave. But like, and we just sat there, and it was crazy. It was amazing. I mean, it was just picking up all of these things and watching him operate. So I decided I wanted to really get back into games. I'm very fortunate. I could then look back on my career and say, all right, I saw what it was like as working in his game studio. I got to live out this dream of working on a film. I've worked in advertising. I've worked in animation. Was just like, what do I want to do with my life? Like where do I want to plant down roots? Where do I really want to drive and really commit myself? And Naughty Dog was like, working in a game studio was far and away just.
Shake, shake, shake your butt. What happened? Oh. What are we gonna...
I think he may have picked up his kids in the middle of the interview. Hugo, I think we lost you, but also I think I heard your family. Oh, no, okay, he dropped off the call. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Family strike. Yeah, if it's family time, I don't know. I guess we'll leave it up to him how much longer he wants to talk. Or that may be it for all I know. We'll see. Remember, this is a Saturday. Dude has a full, work week. He's volunteering his time, so as far as I'm concerned, the second he's got anything better to do, that's that. Is G Fuel supposed to be at 30%? Yes, it is. Is it not? Oh, you back with us?
Hello.
Hey, welcome back.
Sure.
Think the connection's still a bit spotty.
Hello. Oh, where we cut off?
Yeah, we did.
Do you know where?
Seer, you were talking about how you wanted to get back into games. I think you were just at the point where you were going to Naughty Dog, or I think that already happened.
Yeah. So after Pacific Rim, I wanted to get back to games because I really felt like I fit in there, and so I had a friend who was working at id Software, and he told me that they were starting up the reboot, and that I should give it a shot. So I went out there, and after a couple months, I hit it off with Marty. I went from lead concept artist, then I was art director for a little bit, and then now I'm moved up and now game director.
That last part, I guess, is what's most fascinating to me, because you have all your training in design and art and I know to some degree creative production, especially at the the kind of management layer that I presume you're at as game director. But what's utterly confounding to me is you brought certain design principles to 2016 that seem to just be born out of conviction. Like you play a lot of games, and I guess as a keen observer of game design, just playing can probably bring a lot to you. But I guess what I would have expected is that you would have had numerous roles as game director, each with sort of maybe a design sensibility that approaches what we eventually got with 2016 and then Eternal. But you seem to have jumped right there. So
one second.
Oh, okay.
You go. I heard most of that. You said what sounds interesting to you is that while I have experience in design management, and then keep going. I lost you just for a second there. Sorry.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It's I guess what's always stood out to me is that there's a certain, and we've talked about it in the past, but there's a dedication to game mechanic that I don't typically see from first time game directors. So it almost feels like you just came into that role with a certain conviction about how the game should play, and then found a way to create the mechanics to do it. Is that the case? And if so, where did that conviction come from? Was it just from playing a ton of video games?
Playing a ton of video games, you have to have a passion for the medium. Again, I think like it's that combination of the training, the experience, but then my love for video games that I think kind of comes together. And again, I think that's true of anyone when your skill set, is combined with something you're really passionate about. I think you're in a position to make an impact for sure. Mostly like car design is not really, it's not like, hey, let's draw sexy cars. Like that's actually the coolest thing about industrial design is it's industrial design and again, industrial design is product designing, automotive design, and I guess you could say parts of fashion design. The people who I graduated with, while they may have been trained in some specific part of industrial design, I have a friend who's the creative director of Toomey. I mean, and he never drew a single, backpack when he was in school. I have friends who they design watches. They never designed a single watch. Like they were never shown how to do that. So, there are Art Center graduates. This is a big promo for Art Center. They should send me some sort of check. But like, there are Art Center graduates, all over the place, and in all kinds of industries. And they because what you learn in the school is you sit down, and day one I was like, I want to learn how to draw hot cars. And it's like, that's cool. So put your pencil down, and what we're going to do is we're going to study the consumer, and we're going to do market research, and we're going to think about the ergonomics of the experience, and we're going to think about how people feel about things. Just like, what the hell does that mean? Like how do you make people, how do you move people? How do you engage people? How do you make someone, when you think about plunking down $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to purchase a vehicle, 90% of the time, people don't have the money. They're taking out a loan to make that purchase, And so it's kind of amazing. It has to be so compelling what I'm seeing. Like whatever it is about this thing, it meets my needs in some way, whether I want to impress someone, whether it fits my lifestyle, it doesn't matter. Like I have studied the consumer. I understand how they feel, and I'm connecting with them on an emotional level with the thing I created. That's a video game. That's it. So the aha moment when I was in Naughty Dog was like this. I kind of like had these tools that I learned, these tools that I acquired at Art Center, and I was like, these apply. Okay, I know how these apply to like cars and products, but holy cow, like these actually really, really apply well to video games. Like this mentality of like a consumer first mentality, like, the kind of experience, what kind of experience do you want them to have? Like you design a car from the inside out. You begin, you move people. You don't want people purchasing or using their head when they make a purchase. You want them using their heart, because if I connect with you in your heart and connect with you on an emotional level, that's what really counts. If there's this amazing saying in this documentary. By the way, how's my audio?
It's good. We can hear you.
So there's this amazing documentary by the Ford company about the making of the latest Mustang, and in it, everybody should watch it. It's called "Building a Faster Horse," and it's a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. Like you could, that thing could just be about making a video game. It's the same exact thing, and one of the guys says that buying a Mustang is a very emotional purchase. He said because nobody buys a Mustang because it's a practical purchase. They buy it because it moves them in some way. It's a feeling, which is like goddamn amazing to me. I mean, I'm just obsessed with that, and I just think it's the coolest thing because it's so true. I mean, a Mustang is bad on gas. You can't fit shit in a Mustang. Like, why would you ever buy a Mustang? Because of the way it sounds and the way it makes you feel, and it's what it represents. It represents a piece of muscle car history of even just America. There's just all kinds of meaning that it has. And that all comes to bear when you look at it on the show floor and also like how it feels when you get into it, like when you hold on to the steering wheel, when you turn it, it's more than just how it looks, it's just how it works. That's all a game. I mean, it's starting out in 2016 and saying like, what is Doom? Not beginning with I'm going to draw some demons. Don't start there. Like start with how does it make people feel? And Marty, I have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Marty. I started rattling all this shit off to him and having these conversations with him. And he was already there. I mean, they had rebooted. They wanted to find the soul of Doom. And then he basically found someone who starts his creative process with finding the soul of the thing, and immediately he and I just started hitting it off and would talk in the office for hours into the evening about the soul of Doom. And I would talk to him about my experiences and, how I feel about how to approach design and how it just applied to everything, not just how it looked, but how it felt in people's hands, the crunch of the attack, aggression. What is it? The theme of aggression and how that's got to be the through line in everything in Doom. And how do we create that sensation in the player? Which I think is enhanced in Eternal through adversity. I think again, it's you could take an elevator up to the top of Mount Everest. Will you feel strong when you get to the top? Or who's going to feel stronger, the person who conquered that mountain and climbed that mountain themselves, or the person who took an elevator up there? Like I could guarantee you that the roar that person lets out who climbed that mountain is going to be, it's going to have a little bit more on it than the person who rode the elevator. So it's it really all comes down to like the education at Art Center and how those things really just translated extremely well, shockingly well, to game design. And then also just being this is probably the most important thing, a super fan of fast-paced, skill-based action games like the games that id makes. Quick funny story, I applied to a job once at a studio and they asked me what my favorite games were of the last couple of years, and they were all id games. And it's just funny because it was kind of like, you should work at id. Yeah, like, it helps. I mean, I think for those out there listening who are in the game industry, they want to hire people who are passionate about the kind of games that they make, and I want to make games that make you feel aggressive and make you feel strong, and I want to make id games. That's it. It wasn't a leap for me to get into the mindset of a Doom player because I am a Doom player. I mean, I want to make that game. I want to play that game. So yeah, sorry, super long answer, but that's my story.
No, that's amazing. It makes a lot of sense now that you said it that way. I guess, like you said, I was too focused on the end point, the expression of the endpoint mechanic versus the actual, I guess, kind of finding the soul of the thing and then letting that inform everything you do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because execution is a huge part of it. Absolutely. I mean, that's where you have to have. Again, I could just go back to Art Center because that was one of the coolest things. Was like, you make products with people. You don't make Art Center really. I embrace being a commercial artist. Which is a commercial artist is someone who makes art with others for others, and a fine artist is someone who makes art for themselves for themselves. But they make art by themselves for themselves. Neither is better, but I will say that the craft of making a video game is certainly commercial art, and I enjoy that process. I mean, I like working with people, and then yeah, like applying, thinking of these things in this way is endlessly engaging.
I agree. That's one of the things I find so that I immediately kind of found very magnetic around Doom 2016, and then certainly in Eternal, is that communication, and that certainly that overflowing love and spirit in the game. Man, let's see here. I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to absorb your whole weekend. So let me.
No,
let me
I'm good. It's as
Yeah?
long as you don't mind the audio, just keep going.
Honestly, my only concern is how long I'm going to be up after this. But you know what? It's time well spent. There's something that I found. I've got some kind of like. Well, you know what? Specifically, this is something I'm curious about. In your role as game director, I have a small amount of experience, like managing large projects and managing teams, but nothing to the degree of something like game director. So, for you, how much information would you say you need to have in your brain at any one time, or do you essentially have the entire scope of the game at any point in your head, or do you like what organizational tools have you developed to help you execute your job and track the amount of information you probably have to track?
It's funny because that tool has been taken away from me in COVID, and right now, we're working on some stuff, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time. I'm adjusting, but I live next to a whiteboard. I mean, my office. I have an office, but I'm never in it. I basically just hang out in this one office space that we have at ID that has whiteboards all around, and basically that room becomes like the hub for the game because I'll end up drawing. I basically communicate everything visually with just abstract little pictures, and I mean I know how to draw, so like I use that skill, and I'll just basically communicate to the team like themes, ideas, high level concepts, and then track them by basically just not erasing the whiteboard, and it becomes this living diagram of different parts of the game, and then sometimes it'll bleed into other rooms where we'll take over that room for story, but yeah, there's this one main office in Doom. It's pretty big. It's got a lot of whiteboard space, and I get my five color erase markers, and I just start diagramming out just high level concepts. I don't want to, it's not doing the team service. It's doing them a disservice to sound like, and that's where I draw up how the meat hook's going to work. Like, no, it's more like really the try to capture the essence of the experience we're trying to create, and then it has to evolve. I mean, as conversations, we do experimentation, we have to pivot, working with the designers, working with the artists. You have I always say you draw an X on the map, and you the path that you get there is not a straight line, it's a zigzag, and sometimes you have to kind of shift the X a little bit, but I'll be honest, you don't want to move that X too much. I mean, that means you're wildly off your first, with your general high concept. There's a couple of guiding principles that we use, which is again, it's really all from Art Center. Is you're very transparent to the consumer. People say like you use these words like product and consumer. It's very cold. Like, again, that's just how I was taught. To me, consumer is not a dirty word. I love that. Like that's they're the boss. And so you can't lie to the boss. Like the boss can see right through you, as most good bosses can. And so if you have some sort of agenda that you don't want to share with the consumer, and that is really the guiding principle of your project, it doesn't matter, because when you release it, they'll see it. You might as well have a perfect example is with Doom 2016, with the multiplayer. We basically made like a a compromised Quake. Like took a little bit of column A, took a little bit of column B, and made a really good multiplayer. I mean, I think it's great, but that story wasn't something that I think we were comfortable. Once you got on a stage, it was a little bit like they don't like this. This is not what they want, and it sounds like we're following and not leading, and we're in software, and they expect us to lead, and they can see that this is kind of like a buffet of ideas as opposed to driving our forging our own path. And it was a really good reminder of that lesson, that you are transparent to the consumer. So when we begin the process, we really just have to act like the fans are going to be a fly on the wall through the whole thing. And if they heard what you were talking about right now, how would they feel? And it's helped us tremendously. I think every ounce of Eternal is made with the player in mind, and I think people feel that. To your opening question of like, was it risky? Because you're saying like some of the decisions we made were could be seen as risky, but again, the guiding principle was player first.
I guess the way I think about it is some of the decisions from a business standpoint could be seen as willingly limiting the appeal of your game to an audience. I guess the conventional thinking is, hey, if you make it easy, if you give people a power fantasy that's easy to approach and they come away feeling satisfied, maybe not nourished, but satisfied, that more people will be willing to buy your game, or it'll get more positive buzz. It'll pass the SIP test. So when it came to like sticking by certain mechanics, especially as the DLCs went on, was there ever it's often phrased as like, oh, the publishers are up there and they're the bad guys telling you to change your beautiful creative vision. Having worked in, creative production, I see it more as like often people making a creative product are willing to, or they understand the game, right? Like you have to have consumers, like you have to get them somehow. So I just wonder, was there ever a bit of a back and forth about where to put that difficulty boundary or that mechanical boundary? Because if you don't get enough people playing your game, you can't make more of them. And I bring that up now because now you've not only made the game, but 2 DLCs, which itself feels pretty rare. So clearly your gamble worked, but along the path, there must have been some questioning. Like maybe we pushed the needle one way, we pushed it the other. I don't know. Was that ever up for discussion, or were you always very, very clear about your vision for the game and then its evolution in the DLCs?
We were pretty clear, honestly. We had earned their trust, and I really, really enjoy working with the people I work with. And so communication is key. And there was always buy-in. Marty and I talk constantly, and we talk with our publisher often. And so there was always buy-in. In particular, the play tests went extremely well, and that's really what it boils down to. Because that's another part of just making content, is that the consumer can see right through you, and they are never wrong. So I could tell you blah, blah, blah stories about emotional connections to products from Art Center and who gives a crap, because if you pick up the controller and you don't enjoy it, it doesn't matter. The answer is you should have went to a different school. Because and you've got to have that sobering, like just now shut up, let them play, and they will tell you what it is, and so we have milestones, throughout that all performed incredibly well. Every time someone would pick up the controller or the mouse and keyboard and play test for a milestone, whether it was vertical slice or whatever, I mean, it was amazing. Wasn't perfect. I mean, it had room for improvement, and that's not to say also again that there isn't things that we feel like we could do better, like tweaking the Arachnotron and stuff. But I mean, I think we have too many currencies in Doom Eternal. I think there's room for improvement there. I think some of what Eternal could improve on is the complexity around the progression. I mean, there's a lot of things to track, and I think for some people, if they don't know, if they get confused or they forget and they don't upgrade their character, they'll find themselves in Super Gornest without having upgraded anything, and they're going to have a really hard time. So that happens a lot, actually, like that. And that's just, hey, we'll do it better. I think that's an area of where the game could get better, I think. And I don't think that would take away from the skill ceiling or the experience at all. I mean, I think that's just honestly streamlining things in a way that would make for a better experience. So yeah, we had our milestones and we always ace them, and that's really all that matters. Then it's what's usually the case is you don't say much, you put it in someone's hand, they love it, then they ask you how you did it, and then you could tell them about Art Center and all the funny stories. But but nobody wants to hear that shit beforehand. And if they play it and they don't like it, then they really don't want to hear about that stuff.
Yeah, because then it's just pretense.
Exactly. And so yeah, it's and honestly the bet though is that, like, you know, you could say you might lose someone who wants to just run down a hallway with a shotgun and do nothing else. But who do you gain? I think that's the question, Lawrence, is like, who did we lose, but who did we gain? You know, and because I think we did. I think we shifted our audience a little bit, and we want everybody to come along. But I you know, it's going to happen. I mean, I think the thing that we shouldn't do is just make the same game again. You know, I'll say that too. Like, it's, you know, I think the core of Eternal, the way it approaches, you know, the experience, I think is important, and definitely something we could build around in the future. But I also don't think we should make Eternal 2.0. You know, I really think that each time a big reason why we made it different also is just so that way, if someone picks up the Doom Collector's Edition, Collected Edition, you know, on sale on Steam or something, if they play 2016 and then they play Eternal, I'm proud to say that those two experiences will provide that they'll stand apart from each other. And I think that's a good thing, you know, as opposed to playing 2016 and then getting halfway through Eternal and being like, yeah, I'm good on this. You know, like, this just feels like a DLC of 2016. I would argue that anybody who's like, well, I wish it was like 2016, I'm like, I'm gonna make a bet that you would have made it halfway through that experience and then just quietly shut it off. You know, I think that happens a lot. People say like, oh, I want it to be like the last one. And I mean, whoever says that, honestly, too, would think about it. You go to the movies or whatever, and you're like, man, that was so awesome. It was just like the last one. That was great.
Yeah. Kind of Force Awakens was I think the nearest and like biggest event of something that was very similar, but people both liked and disliked it for its similarity. Really interesting stuff. I don't know. People seem to be chase the emotional resonance of it without realizing, I think, that, yeah, you can't have the same meal twice in a row and have it taste the same.
Absolutely. I think Empire to Star Wars to Jedi is probably the best, like, something new every time, but still Star Wars. Like, you know, there's a through line, certainly, and it's amazing, but I like how each one kind of stands on its own, you know?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, and I guess by that token, you're basically telling us that any game you make in the future won't be mechanically in the wheelhouse of Doom Eternal or its DLCs, yeah? Because you've been there and you've done it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's got to be different. You know, I think it could have the same, like, DNA, almost the same chassis, but sure. I think it's got to be different.
Do you see yourself always making games that are that kind of have that backbone of forcing the player to make multiple complicated decisions in a short amount of time? Or do you see yourself going walking simulator someday?
We should do a complicated walking simulator, a demanding walking simulator.
Yeah, that's Death Stranding, right?
Well, I think the word complicated is where you want it to be intuitive. I mean, that's what I think, like, with Eternal, the hope is, again, I'm not saying it happens for everyone. The hope is that what first seems complicated then becomes second nature. You know, I think when Eternal reaches a point where I think it's muscle memory almost, and you're the satisfaction of the game. Well, I don't know. You tell me. I think the satisfaction of the game is that you're making split-second decisions. Like what you once felt was overwhelming. It's kind of like you control the chaos, you know, and you ride that edge. I don't know. What is it like for you?
To me, it's like playing music. You pick up a guitar, and when you first start, you have to individually think about where your fingers go. You got to press them down. The strings are uncomfortable for your fingers. You're not playing music yet because you're learning the machine. But then once you learn the machine and your hands do what they do automatically, then suddenly you can sort of connect that non-thinking, non-analytical part of your brain to what your body is doing, and then music can flow through you. And to me, that's what Eternal is like. Once you've learned the buttons, then it ceases to become about, mechanically thinking about what you're going to do, and then it's more emotion flowing into action. So I'm going to go fuck that demon up, and then you do it in a way that is spiritually resonant to how you're feeling, using whatever gun or something like that. But yeah, it's reaching that point where
that is such a good explanation. That's amazing. So I told the fans, I said, think of the Doom as like a guitar, and because somebody was asking me like, what do I think of the fans, what they're doing now, and I'm like, well, it's kind of like we're Gibson and we made a guitar, we made a Fender, whatever, like Fender is a company. We made a guitar, and then you're asking me, it's like, what is it like watching Eddie Van Halen play a solo on that guitar? You're just like, you're fucking astounded, I couldn't agree more. Like it is, you play a solo on that Baron, right? I mean, you see him there, and you're just like, you do a little riff on him, a little finger tapping, little whammy bar, and you just leave him in a pile of red dust, and it feels amazing. Absolutely, I would think the music analogy you made there is spot on. I feel that's why, honestly, I like playing it on a controller. I mean, I can play it on mouse and keyboard, but I'm not as good as you guys. And physically holding the controller feels like I'm playing something like an instrument. Like you move your hands around in such a way, and once you get really used to it, like you feel like you're playing something, like an instrument. It's a great analogy.
I have. Geez, there's still a Rock Band guitar next to my desk because the power of peripherals and interface devices in attaining that is pretty special. I have a variety of very nerdy rhythm games that I play, and they kind of all get to that point where I mean, even like something like DDR, you start and you're just standing in the middle and you like stomp one arrow at a time. But if you play it for years, then suddenly you're doing backflips and running across the machine and all that stuff. It's what's cool is like it's a different game at those two levels, the way you process it. And I love it when it's on the other side of that.
It is, and what's really cool is guys like yourself. I think you are the Jimmy Pages and the Jimi Hendrix of the experience, and you're leading by example. Like, I can't tell you how many Reddit threads I've seen where I've spoken to a lot of fans, and I'll kind of zero in the community on people who hate the game, and not in a negative way. Like I watch them, like I want to see if they'll like, what is the arc of their experience like? And not with everyone, but there's been several members of the community who I've actually reached out to, who I remember in the first couple of weeks were like, I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I got no ammo. I mean, Lawrence, the usual complaints. Like, you got no ammo. It's too hard, blah, blah, blah. And then somewhere like this person, I don't want to call him out. I've done it on other streams. He fell in love with it. And then he became like one of our biggest supporters and really vocal. And look, he still gives me an earful of lore, criticisms of the lore and different things. But he really got it. And when I asked him about that, he said it was the footage from the high level players that inspired him to stick with it. Like, because it was an example of like, oh, I'm just not playing this right. I'm not playing the instrument correctly. Or at least that this is what the instrument is capable of. And that's been awesome to see. Not for everyone. I mean, there are. I mean, you're having conversations with your friends, people who, the Doom guitar is not for them. But we gotta reach those people, Lawrence. We gotta keep going.
And I can only presume that's why you're out doing the tour. I mean, not to make it so dispassionate, I guess, but I presume that by offering up your time, you are hoping to sort of, pour a little lighter fluid on the community and keep the game going and active.
Yeah, because I think that we saw with the mods and people playing the game that this community kind of sprang up, and obviously with the DLCs, I mean, it didn't just spring up out of nowhere. I mean, we provided them with new content, and master levels. So yeah, I mean, it's it's an opportunity to speak to the artists that are using the instrument. You know, like the people who are doing some of the most impressive stuff with it. You know,
And I
and
mean,
like I told Sean that I was like, I gotta talk to Lawrence. Like this is well, he brought it up too, like that you were a big fan, and I know you guys know each other. But I was like, yeah, man, I've seen his streams. I mean, that guy's amazing.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's like I said before, it's enough for me to just. I mean, I'm grateful that you made the thing, and I consider myself lucky to be in the world at the same time as it. So, but beyond that, man, I really appreciate it. On that note, I think you guys deserve a lot of congratulations for not only making a game like Doom Eternal, but then successfully releasing 2 DLCs that are both very well crafted. That on its own, regardless of anything else, is pretty rare, I would think. A single player, content rich, mechanically dense game that then has 2 like canon story based follow ups. Like the FromSoft games don't really do that. Really, not a whole lot of games do. The ones that do, the DLC is not really given the time or the maturation that Tag 1 and 2 clearly have. So, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, to what would you attribute Doom Eternal's success in that? Yeah, Witcher 3 is another one, I guess. GTA had some good expansions.
The team, you know, it's not like we work together really well. Again, all of this design stuff doesn't mean anything without you know, a good group of people working together well, and so with the DLCs, we honestly got to flex a little bit. That's what it kind of felt like. Even in COVID, there was a certain you could feel it in the office. I mean, we were all working from home at that point, but it was just kind of like we're like, I would joke all the time. I'm like, we're the world's leading expert on making Doom content, you know. So let's make more Doom content. I mean, it was always in the plan to make DLCs, but yeah, just the efficiency of the team working together. I mean, they did that in a work from home environment, which is incredible. And yeah, and it was fun. I think it gave us all something to focus on, and we're really proud of it. Which one do you like better?
Between the 2,
Yeah,
DLCs, probably Tag 1. I like them both for different reasons. Actually, now that I think about it, so Tag 1 was fun just because I enjoy games that almost dare me to not be able to finish it, and Tag 1 was definitely that. I thought the Spirit was an incredible mechanic, and the way that it was used in the final encounter was extremely memorable. Tag 2 added a ton more mechanics, but didn't. I think I had to put this diplomatically. It seemed like the mechanics added in Tag 2 were awesome, but there wasn't. I feel like there's so much more potential in all the mechanics added in Tag 2. So it almost to me felt like it was setting up more nightmare levels and stuff like that, as opposed to Tag 1, which added mechanics and then it immediately put me in fights that seemed to really, really harness them.
which, I mean, you nailed it right on the head. So there was more of that in Tag 2, right up before release, and in the final stages, I was playtesting it and just kind of felt like, it's weird, like just make it a glorious send off. That's just how I felt. Like there was something about in Amora, you see this epic opening, and you're chasing down the Dark Lord, and then I'm in a friggin' combat puzzle that takes me 2 hours. You know, like some of the stuff we did in the swamp, it just felt like it didn't fit in what should be the entirety of the experience. Have this kind of forward momentum to it. You know, your race to the Dark Lord, and then also like, I think Tag 1 is better in the sense that obviously it's larger and it's mechanically more dense with combat puzzles. So like it's rich and you could chew on it for a long time. You know, there's a lot to master. But I wanted Tag 2 to be more fun on the first playthrough, which I think it is. I think it's a more enjoyable experience on playthrough 1. I think DLC 1 is more enjoyable on, like, it holds up to multiple playthroughs better. You know, like, because once you master the hammer, you know, you own Tag 2. I mean, you could own it even before that because it doesn't necessarily require the hammer. But and I would say that, like, I also wanted to make Tag 2 something that was for we really wanted to try to target the entirety of the Doom fan base. Like I felt like let's watch out that we're not making everything master levels. Because not everybody at that point had been playing mods and playing all the time. So we definitely felt like, you know what, let's just make this an enjoyable, fun experience, still challenging, and then hit him with the master levels. Where we could really test the Screecher, test the hammer. So I mean, you're spot on.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember when Tag 2 was about to come out, people were speculating / hoping that there would be a mech sequence because, the world knows you love your mechs, which is awesome. But for me, a lot of games do that at the end. They have their like invincible murder hallway, where it is just a victory lap. The sort of mechanics free zone is just like a breather after doing stuff. So once I had played Tag 2, I was like, well, they didn't have a mech sequence, but the final encounter essentially was. Which actually leads, there was a question submitted by the community from Captain Sverage. Asked, did id Software feel that the fight in Tag 1 was too difficult, or was it a community outcry that made you crack down on Tag 2's final boss encounter, saying that it was significantly easier? So, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but was that your approach, is that you wanted Tag 2 to just be like a drag race instead of burdening people with stuff?
Pretty much. Like, again, like a victory lap, like... And a reward for investing in the mechanics. Like if you knew the mechanics, you could have an enjoyable time. And again, make sure that opening playthrough was enjoyable. And that also, there's no question. Like, watch out that the final boss isn't too much of a grind. Like, I mean, I think he's pretty challenging and demands perfection, but not the samurai fight is definitely harder. That's for sure. So no, and not a crackdown, more of like just an observation, like the watching people play and what feels right, like especially knowing, I guess, Lawrence, that we're going to make master levels. You know what I mean? It's like we have ways to scratch that itch. And what I found in particular was with the hammer, when you use the hammer, so the hammer obviously is super powerful. Do I think there could be some balance thing? Maybe, I don't know. Like, I mean, it feels strong. That's good. That's the point. We had like several encounters that had multiple barons, and what happened was, if it was what we would usually do, like with Tag 1, like you said, which was like, oh, hey, this thing, now let's ramp it up. But it just meant that, man, if you weren't using the hammer, holy cow! I mean, you were going to eat it, And so it's a little bit light on terms of how much it demands of you, and how well you're using the tool. And then just leave some of that on the table for master levels. Which is, listen, I mean, is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. The consumer is the one who decides. So there were certainly people who wanted it to be harder.
I think there always will be. There's again, from following rhythm games, there is a certain demon out there, and no matter how difficult content you make up, that demon will never be satisfied. Which I guess is kind of true in every regard if you're making commercial art.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. It's but how about, I mean, I don't know if you saw the community and how they pivoted on that. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, there was a hot second, I thought, where the community started to get a little bit hostile towards each other, because I would get messages from Doom fans who would say, look, dude, I don't play this all the time. I really love your game, but like, thank you for making Tag 2 this way. Like, it was enjoyable. Because they would see me saying, like, guys, I wanted it to be enjoyable in your first playthrough, like, blah, blah. And then other people who would say, that's bull, like, give us more, harder. And they would kind of be, criticizing the other part. I use the jiu-jitsu analogy. It was like the black belts were walking around the gym and making the purple belts feel bad, And I told the guys, I said, look, we can't have a gym where the black belts are, they become elitist, because then nobody's going to be at the gym, and when you say, like, the risk involved with making a skill-based FPS game that's demanding, I think that's the big risk, is like you start to develop a community that becomes black belts only, or an experience that's for black belts only, and that community, whether it's on Reddit or anywhere, is not really welcoming to anybody outside of the black belt community, and demands that all content be made for them. That becomes the problem. But I am really impressed with the way the community came together, and everybody became really constructive. I mean, that's the key. Is like, I'm always talking to these guys, and when we had the blood punch issue, which I'm sure you must have felt, right? The blood punch.
Yeah. Just not firing or hitting the wrong thing. Yeah.
That was awful. The community would make these videos that were like super constructive. It was crazy. Me and Marty would watch them. We were just like, this is nuts. Like, guys, we just want to help. Here's a breakdown of why it doesn't work. This is when it doesn't work. Here's my Discord. Call me if you need help. Like, literally, those were the videos. And we did. We reached out to all of them, and we were able to fix it. That and the no target stuff. So I just told him, I was like, we should just get back to that. Like, you could, I'm not saying like, I just preach the consumer's never wrong. It's like, guys, if you don't like it, like, I'm listening, but we all are. But let's not like make other people feel bad because they do like it.
Well, that even hits on an interesting dynamic where if you invite players to accomplish in your games, then they feel an incredible amount of ownership, pride, and then defensiveness of that accomplishment. So anything that follows after the fact that might devalue or like sap the perceived achievement of that accomplishment, then almost gets attacked like some kind of immunodefense thing. Or yeah, if I walked around every day with like beaming with pride that I beat Doom on Nightmare, and then Nightmare got easier, suddenly my accomplishment has less value, which means I have less value. I don't know. I've thought a lot about that dynamic because it's not a great one.
That's spot on though. Like, that was another thing. Like, we've definitely learned some lessons, and the one lesson we learned is, dude, the experience is what the experience is. Like, don't be really careful what you change, because of what you just said. And so we're reverting, in patch 5, we're going to be reverting some of the tag 1 nerfs. Some of them didn't really, I don't know how you feel, Lawrence, but like, I thought some of the tag 1 moments were just trolly, like hidden tentacles and fog. I was just like, it's a step too far. And what I didn't like was what I was seeing on the streams was people were using really funky exploits to overcome, like the one fog area where the Doom Hunter comes out, the possessed Doom Hunter or whatever, and the Rackatron, and like, oh, well, you jump up on the main pillar and and I'm like, oh my God, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Like, we didn't even know you could get up there. Like, but that's on us. Like, we made the experience. It was just tuned too tight, and it was enough to say, face a spirited demon in low with low visibility. That's enough. Like, on top of that, we had exploding sacks, which again, I actually think that's still fair game. But then on top of that, we hid tentacles, which Jason O'Connell, our principal combat and gameplay designer, he joked, he's like everybody walks into that arena low on health because they all get hit by the hidden tentacles. So it was I don't want to put that stuff back. We took that stuff out. I think it should stay out. What do you think?
It's I feel like there's a lot of room for playful trollishness. I think a lot about the Serious Sam series when it comes to that. The level design in those kinds of games, and to a lesser extent classic Doom, would sometimes have moments of communication where there's a big empty room and just one small health right in the middle. And as soon as the door opens and you see that, you just feel this sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, which not only sets up a moment where you pick up the health and then a bunch of monsters spawn, but then you pick up the health and then nothing happens. And it makes it even worse. Or it spawns another health in the corner of the room, and then you chase that. So I feel like, and I got a lot of that sensibility in Tag 1 as well. It did feel like a classic expansion pack where the levels themselves became communication. And part of that communication was going back to that playful spirit of, we're going to make this to like tease you. It's like thumping you on the ear to irritate you. But the point of that irritation is to motivate you into finishing. But that doesn't motivate everyone, I think, is the problem. It's like the high school football coach. He can scream and yell, and teen dudes tend to respond to that, but not every teen dude and not every person. So I respond to that, especially in terms of game design. I like it when games sort of laugh at me for even having the the audacity to try to play it. And having like hidden tentacles and stuff, I think it's part of that. It's almost the designer saying, okay, we can't beat you in a like a fair fight, so now we have to get sneaky. And some part of that like playful antagonism is fun for me, but I can see how it wouldn't be for everyone, especially when you're just a normal player and you get smacked. I don't know what normal player means in that regard, but
No, you just nailed it. I mean, that's why we did it in the first place. Everything you'd make a good developer, Lawrence. That you're gonna get it. You keep talking, you're gonna get a phone call from me. The like you should come down and hang out with us for a little while.
well, I mean that is my hometown, so I have to go see my parents at some point.
Oh, dude, you should totally come by the studio. That'd be awesome.
It's gonna be. Are you guys still in the Richardson place?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be surreal. I haven't been in that building in 12 years. Oh my gosh. Maybe I can swing by my old place and show off a little bit. That'll be fun.
That would be awesome. You should totally do that. The team would love to have you. Well, you nailed it. I mean, that's why we did it. You know, like the one statement you said was, well, we can't beat you in a fair fight anymore. You know, it is a little bit of that. Like that's what the spirit is. You know, like all of the new AI. That's why none of them are bullet sponges in the DLCs, because the bullet sponge doesn't stop anybody. You know, like that's just more PB Rocket. You know, and so each one is meant to kind of like say, hey, you know, that's not going to work. Like you got to think, you got to do something else. And the tentacles were that too. I just like, you know, you play the percentages. I mean, like, I was just kind of like, man, I think of the majority of the audience is like cheesing this, you know, like, we also track data, you know, we could see like where people are dying, like what we would consider to be too much. And, I also thought that the pacing of Tag 1 wasn't very good. That was the big driving force between why Tag 2 feels the way it does, is like, I found the pacing of Tag 1 to be relentless, which is awesome. I mean, I like it, of course, but kind of made playing through it like a chore the first time, because it was like every encounter on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 10 or near a 10. And so Tag 2 tried to have better pacing, you know, like just like some palate cleanser experiences, some powers fantasy experience. Here's 10 hammer pickups and like, you know, 5 mancubus. Like just have fun, relax, you know, use the mechanic, bathe in it, enjoy it. Because they'll, you know, around the corner we'll have a brain buster for you. And whereas I feel like this is the strength of Tag 1, obviously, where like every minute of Tag 1 is basically a problem to solve. So that's why we thinned out UAC a little bit in the beginning, kind of like the idea was to ease them into the experience. But we're going to revert that stuff. I mean, I don't disagree. Like, that wasn't the stuff that I think was trollishly hard. That stuff was just pacing stuff, but I think that's fine. We're just going to put it back. The thing that I don't want to put back is the tentacles in the fog. And I don't want to put back tentacles in the fog, and I don't want to put back the way that the bridge fight on the Holt. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that exactly. So Sammer's fight is wickedly hard, and the idea that probably one of the hardest encounters in the DLC is on that bridge, and it's 5 minutes before you're about to fight the hardest fight in the whole game. I don't know about that. Like,
yeah, you come into it mentally exhausted, because I sure did.
And that I saw that. I mean, it was like, this dude is not raring to go. You know, he's tired. You know, so you know, you're about to play your solo. Let's give him a little breathing room. And so I think that should remain. I mean, it sounds like you agree, like that we should keep that. All we did was we removed the tentacles there and we spaced out the AI, and I think deleted one of them.
I think that's fair. I mean, what I loved about that particular encounter is, I mean, every arena in Eternal and the DLCs is geographically unique, but that specific encounter where it's a bridge, which doesn't give you a lot of options. Well, with the meat hook, you have a few. You can like dash off into the air and then kind of zoom back over. But if you use the meat hook, then you'll end up in the purple stuff with all the tentacles on the other side. So it almost reminds me of the how the, like, I don't know the name of it, but the room with all the like vertical columns that were electrified that essentially took away it essentially took away your ability to dash. Which it took me a while to understand that was what was going on. It was purple goo without purple goo. But I love it when the layout of an arena is like even more consequential than the demons in it. And the bridge was like, it was everything. The same amount of demons in a square room would be nothing, but it was the fact that it was a narrow bridge and then 2 pools of purple stuff with tentacles just made it so horrible. And they're really, I don't know of any other arenas that have a layout like that. So that encounter is beautiful. It's just its placement is extra mean. But then again, I also took that to be the spirit of Tag 1, was that it was a linear continuation from the end of Eternal, which itself was getting pretty rough. In
one of the devs said he beat it on Nightmare, and he sent this feedback, and he's like, it's almost like the base game is in the Matrix, it's the tutorial, and then Tag 1 is sitting there like at the beginning, like Morpheus, and he just says, "Show me," and that's the entirety of Tag 2 is you showing Morpheus just how good your kung fu is. And then that's Tag 1. Tag 2 is much more like you're a champ.
Yeah, you've done it.
Like,
you've begun to believe.
Yeah, the confetti is coming down. The audience is cheering.
Well, I thought expectations were properly set. So when I started Tag 1, I was like, is this going to start at like Doom Eternal difficulty, or is it going to continue on? And then that first encounter sort of tells you what's up. It's like, no, we're starting here and running with it. So I guess with that very first encounter, my expectations were kind of set, and then what I eventually got fell in line with those expectations. So I wasn't particularly off put because I felt like I was kind of told what to expect.
Well, and the nice thing about, I agree. That's why we're going to put it back. That was the point of it, was just yeah, totally. Like, hey, welcome to the party. Like this is what it's about, you know. With Tag, I forgot what I was going to say, but that absolutely that is what we were going to I was going to say something. That was what we were going for, was really set the expectations, you know, right from the get-go as far as like what it was we were trying to accomplish.
Right on. All right. I was going to say
that the nice part of the DLC, like making the DLCs for us, we learned so much from it that like because you're dealing with Doom fans. You know what I mean? Like the people who show up to buy a DLC are people who know your experience and who like it and are basically showing up saying like, yeah, we bought the ticket, we're sold, like give us more. And so it allows us to take a few more chances, which is good. And so from those chances that we took with some of the unique AI that we made, it helped us iron out our process a lot more. Because some of the stuff that's going on with the AI is pretty funky. I mean, like in terms of like programming and some of the stuff that the guys had to figure out and how to wire it all together. And we now take that experience and those learnings into the next thing. And I do think that like you know, I don't like the word complicated, but it is complicated in the beginning, as anything. But I think it should be intuitive, but still, you know, still hold on to that level of that kind of skill ceiling that, you know, at the end, as you described it, you feel like you own it and you could play it like an instrument. And I think a lot of the encounters that you mentioned, the pillar encounter and the Holt, just more of that. I love that stuff. Not all of that. Definitely that can't be the entirety of the experience, but just moments like that, I think, are really memorable, you know? And I think definitely we could do more with that.
I agree. All right. We've been talking for almost 2 hours, so I've got one more question for you. I mean, I could keep going, but I won't because I want to get back to playing Doom. But all right, this is the last one, so it's got to be a big one, right? This is the gotcha. This is it was all fun and games until now. Now's the big stuff. I want to get you trapped. This is from member of the community, Scott, asks, and again, this is the big one. There's no weaseling out of this. You're going to want to weasel out of it, but I'm not going to let you. All right.
Okay.
Is Doom Guy hot?
Is he hot?
Yeah.
I mean, his eyes are kind of far apart. So you're saying hot is unattractive.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. His eyes are kind of awkwardly a little far apart. So that's a little weird. I think that makes him like really unsettling. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of got this like his. You don't know if he's like intelligent or what's going on there, and like I don't think he's unintelligent. I mean, I don't think he's like, a mouth breathing Jason Voorhees type. But like, I mean, we do model him and his personality after like Michael Myers, and he's somewhere. He's like one part Rambo, one part Michael Myers, one part Terminator. And is he? I don't.
I love the question. Like it's such an obvious question, but also sexuality doesn't exist in the Doom games. Like it's just not part of that universe. So to think about it crossing over.
I'll be honest. He's the hero of our game, so I'm reluctant to say he's not. That seems wrong. The hero's got to be, I suppose, according to the tropes, he's supposed to be attractive, he or she. But I got to go with the eyes are a little far apart. It's a little weird looking. So
weird looking. Kind of like a bird of prey. Like he has like 360-degree vision because his eyes are sort of wall-eyed out.
That's true. I would say, sure. I mean, look, he's appealing, because he's uncompromising, and I would suppose that would make him some form of hotness.
It's got those crazy biceps too. What?
The dude's so jacked his arms deform when he lifts up laser swords. I mean, let's be honest. That sequence when he lifts up the sword, if you're paying attention to what goes on with the Geo on his arm, there's some craziness going on. He's dare I say his arms are too big, but yeah, that's a hilarious question.
Actually, one minor follow up then. What was and I think this is an obvious answer, but what was the artistic inspiration behind just giving him a little bicep keyhole in his Eternal armor versus being more covered in 2016?
Oh, just to kind of communicate to the audience, set the tone for Eternal, which is really comic book. Like, hey, this is not real. And please, take this with a grain of salt. Like, we're here to have fun. Kind of the far-fetched fantasy nature of the entire IP. We're going to be fighting pinkies, charging pinkies and pulling eyeballs out of floating giant red sacks, and that tone is set with a hero that walks around in outer space with his biceps out and magically doesn't whatever would happen to you in space, according to Guardians of the Galaxy, you slowly freeze. I doubt that's the case, but sure. And none of that stuff happens to him. So it's a pretty it's a pretty comic book, brand, and certainly with Eternal even more so. So that's really what it is. Just also, I think it it's true to the IP because that's how it started. He was abs exposed, biceps exposed, so we just wanted to stay true to that.
I love approaching what seems like an obvious question, and then to realize that way more thought and craft went into it. Because I was just like, oh, he's big, big boy, he's beef.
Well, that's what people say. Like, again, I'm not saying that everybody loves Eternal. The people who don't like it say it takes itself too seriously. I'm like, the guy has giant guns in outer space. Like, this. I don't think we're taking this seriously. Like,
yeah, the moment when he loaded himself into a cannon and shot himself into another planet, I was like, or another space station. I was like, okay. I mean, damn, I keep thinking of good questions. Like, okay, last one, I swear, maybe. Was there ever anything that was dismissed because it was too ridiculous? Like, it just tipped the hand too much?
Oh, God, there's so much. I want to give you a real honest answer. I'm trying to think because the game is so absurd that like it's almost like maybe we shouldn't have done certain things. I don't know. Like I don't think we got anything. Like the meetings are just like, maybe he does this and it's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like he blows up Mars. Cool. That sounds good. How does he get there? Shoots himself out of a can. Awesome.
Flying a literal dragon, an actual literal dragon. Yes. Throws a leg over it, rides it like a horse.
Yeah. So Dude, not too much. I got to be honest. The stuff that gets cut is like it's not cut. It's just like couldn't fit in the scope of like the mech stuff and the Titan stuff. It's like we got to get one of those mechs, Lawrence. We got to do it.
I mean, I think it was during one of your Hugo Speaks series. I apologize. I'm dropping the official name of it, but I mean, it's funny because people have asked, and yeah, there's that whole gap in the lore when presumably the Slayer did have his own little mech, and there's I'm sure a lot of levels that could be created in that time slot.
That to me is like a mech from his past, like back when, like, there's a whole like the Clone Wars period of the Doom timeline where he was like he fought for the Makers. He was like the super weapon of the Makers. And leading, or I don't know if he led because he's not really a general type, but he's certainly like the Hulk of the Sentinel Army. Like they unleash him on the problems, and for a time he actually fought for the Khan Maker. That's why in the beginning she says, you can't defy the Khan Maker because it was you who was meant to enforce my will, and blah blah blah, and implying that we used to work together. You used to work for me, and to me that the things in his ship are just relics from his past.
Yeah, but I certainly see that you've seemed to have created an avenue that if you want to bust out that mech, you can someday.
I'd like to. I mean, I like mechs. It's I think it's tricky, like I that's where I think we'd have to do it in a way where it's just pure fun. You gotta just strike that balance, ride that edge of like too much rock, paper, scissors design, too much complexity, just enough, get people in. And so, yeah, we'd have to watch out that didn't turn into like an entire game unto itself. But I would love to. There's no doubt.
All right. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say they're everywhere. We keep putting them. The U.S. forces, the ARC forces have mechs, and the Titans, and yeah, there's giant creatures everywhere. By the way, side note, and now I'm the one keeping you from playing Doom.
Oh, no,
Did you watch Godzilla vs. King Kong?
I did. Yeah.
What did you think?
I really liked it. I
loved it.
I was like an hour into it, and I was like, why hasn't every kaiju film in the last 20 years been exactly like this?
Oh my God, yes. Just no more cutting away when they fight.
Yeah.
God, that drove me so nuts.
They always want to treat it like a tease. Like somehow I haven't already bought my ticket and I'm in for the ride. I don't get it.
Yeah. Oh God, that would drive me crazy. Where it's just like, they're going to fight. And then it was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, I don't care what this person is doing right now. Get back to Godzilla. and then you'd get back to him and he's like already beating up the guy or something. It's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, you just see his tail disappearing into the ocean. Come on.
Yeah, I used to brag because it was like in Pacific Rim we delivered. He hit the monster in the face with a boat.
I mean, I think about that sequence often. Because to me, Pacific Rim delivered that when every other movie couldn't, tried its hardest not to be that. And to some degree, I see parallels in video games. There, again, this Gen 7, mid-aughts to 2010s thing of games trying very hard to not look like games or not play like games. They wanted to be interactive film or at least present that fantasy. And you almost see that reflected in the kaiju films of the time. They tried their hardest not to be kaiju films, as though there were some kind of elevated state of being very coy about showing the monster and only having the CG fight right at the end or something like that. I don't know.
Well, and that's what I mean, you and I clearly, share similar sensibilities because that's how I felt. That's why Eternal looks the way it does. Like I said, it's like that was on the whiteboard. You talk about process. It's celebrate being a video game because don't get into a contest. Pick your lane and own it and dominate in that lane. Try to excel at whatever it is you're trying to do. And I love The Last of Us. Love it. I don't want to compete with them in terms of a quasi cinematic experience. Why would I? They would destroy us. It's you're making a Ferrari. Make a Ferrari. Make the world's greatest exotic car. Don't sit there and be like, well, maybe we should put a back seat in it. Maybe just a little one. No. Make it stronger, faster, sleeker. and that's why Eternal looks the way it does. Like it's a game that sits in total service of the gameplay, and and is not trying to be like a movie, because there are other experiences that do that are amazing, that do that way better than us. And also with the speed of the game, if you're doing your Eddie Van Halen solo, man, you have to be able to pick up this stuff so fast. People ask us, we're so on another tangent here. I feel bad. We're extending this. The people ask me that the lighting looks more dramatic in 2016. That's because on Eternal, we actually put a fill light on all the characters, so that way they stand out no matter what kind of lighting situation they're in. Because we were during development, I think it was about midway through, and the combat loop is really coming together, and we're dancing around, we're doing all that great stuff. It feels awesome. And then like a fireball comes out of the shadow, and I get killed by a character that I can't really see because cinema. Like, well, it's moody and there's atmosphere, and it was just like, dude, I am in a race car. I am trying to win this race. This is a Formula One track. I want everything big and bold, because if I die to that shit, I'm gonna be furious. And that's why it looks the way it does.
Which is, I think that what I'm kind of waiting to happen is for the kind of the crew of people playing games that I grew up with and younger to kind of get old enough to get to that point where they can describe games in kind of the manner that you were, which is there's a game that's a certain style and it's good at what it does. This game's not trying to be that, but I think there are people that only grew up playing the last decade of games. You get used to a style and you think that's just the default. You think that that's how things should be, or that pursuing that style is the point of the medium. So I'm excited that it seems like that phase is starting to pass. While I did enjoy those games, boy, did I miss more mechanically complicated and mechanically dense games. So I'm hoping we're getting to this point where it is a matter of taste, and people can be like, well, it's not that Eternal is better or worse. It's better at doing what it's trying to do, which theoretically should be the evaluation of all art to some degree. Obviously, there are qualifications there, but
I need you to come with me to my interviews, because this is the stuff. This is it. You're nailing it, Lawrence.
Well, thank you. It's only validation from other people that make it happen. So,
well, this is, people would ask me this. They'd be like, how do you want to compete with this and compete with that? Like internally when we were having these discussions of like, a game that's proud to be a video game, and like all of those things, a celebration of the medium, during that era of like gamey video game, and it was, the question was, well, compete with this, compete with that. It's like, I don't want to, like, I don't think that people should stop playing some other game, and replace it with our game. I just want to fit into their rotation. It is like someone's, this is dated now, but their CD, right? Like there's the metal section, and there's the hip hop section, and that's the grunge section. And my CD collection is still all just grunge because I'm old and lame. But and that there's room for all of the different types of experiences. Like I think it's refreshing that I could go from Ghost of Tsushima, which is just, I keep referencing that just because I'm playing it right now and I love it. But it is a beautiful cinematic experience. I'm on a tour through Japan, wonderful. But I don't want every game to feel like that. Like I like that. I turn on a different game, it gives me a different kind of experience. So I agree with you. I think that we should think of them more as genres. When people point out the difference between 2016 to Eternal, it's I'm like, well, that's a different album. Like it's kind of the same music, absolutely, but clearly Eternal is not trying to be a gritty Doom 3 horror film, which I would say that 2016 has more horror film in it. I always say Doom 2016 has a lot more Doom 3 in it than Eternal. Eternal has more 1993 Doom, and 1993 Doom is exactly what you said. It's much more gamey. It's proud to be a game. The pickups alone, giant blue flasks that stand out. But 2016 definitely keys off of the aesthetics of Doom 3, which is great. I think that's awesome. But yeah, I don't think that every game needs to be like that we make.
I agree, and I'm glad they're not, because yeah, there was a lot of convergence, which I guess the conventional thinking would say that, as game budgets go up, risk taking goes down. So then you have every big product sort of converging on this, what is conceived to be a bankable, sellable game type and image. But yeah, luckily, it seems like people are willing to take risks, and then the market's kind of proving that we don't need that much homogeny, which is just incredible. I've been kind of waiting for a while for that maturation to take place.
And then PUBG. You're totally right. And then PUBG's over there, right? And they changed the world with their completely bold, untested, approach to the experience, and it's glorious. Did you fall in love with PUBG? I played the shit out of that game. I love that game.
A bit. What kind of drove me a little bit crazy about PUBG is that the game you play to win the game is not the game you play to get to winning the game, if that makes any sense. So I really loved the pacing of it, and the almost like roulette aspect of it. It did feel like gambling to me, playing a given round, which is not that different from Call of Duty. It's just a lot slower in terms of like the effect of your actual skill and decisions on the outcome. But what drove me crazy about that, and what largely has been remedied by the 99 series, is that I want to shoot people, or I want to be good at shooting people, but I have to like run around and hide for 20 minutes before I get to shoot anyone. Or the shooting has so much that flows into it, but I spend so little time doing it that I can't really practice it very well. So it was 20 minutes to lead up to a solo, and then I botched the solo because I'm not used to playing the guitar.
That was me. I liked it. I didn't say I was good at it.
Yeah.
The drama. I couldn't get enough of the drama. Just it was thrilling.
The build up, the cat and mouse, yeah.
Oh, and when you won, in the early days of the battle royale, I mean, you woke up the full house. You would go crazy, and that was so cool to me. I often described, we're living in this was back when we started Eternal, in the post PUBG era. Where like, I don't know, man, a game like ours, like I think we got to get the heart rate going a little bit. Like, and like you said, looking back on old games, and well, just looking back on Doom 1993. I mean, it's funny. There's just not a lot different. There's so much of that game in our game, the original Doom. But we're circling back now, so maybe that means that we're done. But thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been awesome, and my apologies that the audio is not better. I hope it wasn't too bad.
Oh, it's totally fine. This is your day off, or hopefully your day off. So thank you for spending part of it chatting with me. I mean, first of all, thank you for making the game. That hard work is what all of this flows from, you and your team. So I very much appreciate that. But the fact that you would, break off time on your time off to do that, you got a family and all that stuff, so it means a lot. I very much appreciate it.
Hey, well, I have one question for you. Give me a game that you would recommend in the spirit of what we're talking about, that you would say, hey, you should play.
Like a mechanic focused game. Pac-Man 99 just came out, so that's kind of on my mind. Chat's got a lot. Devil May Cry 5, Neo 2. I'd have to think about that. Like a very core.
Neo 2 is on my list. I haven't done Neo 2 yet, and I'm gonna hit that.
Yeah, Neo 2 is wild on mechanic. Neo 2 is, if you want to like. If you want games where not only the mechanic build, because you basically have two weapon styles, and then each of those have three stances, but Neo 2 and the original Neo had mechanics that both were timing intensive. So if you like hit a button at the right time, you recover resources in the middle of like a tapping out combos, but also switching different styles at the right time not only changes your combo tree, but gives you like momentary buffs. So essentially, it's almost like this open combo system where while you're fighting groups of enemies, in a very Doom Eternal sort of way, you have to sort of look at all your resources and manage all of those to maximize your damage output, but also stay safe. So it's there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of headspace and a lot of room for players to play that game like an instrument, to develop your own style and your own mode. So that's probably the biggest one right now that I would think of.
I will. That will move up my list of let me finish up my tour of Japan, and then I guess we'll be doing more samurai stuff. And awesome. Did you play Sekiro?
Oh yeah, yeah, that game's incredible.
That was man, that game was good. They asked me on a stream what was my favorite from Software. Uh, I want to say that I said that, and I still feel this way, that the world of Bloodborne was my favorite, but the game of Sekiro is my favorite.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with that. And that's so to recant an earlier statement. Yeah, I mentioned that From Software didn't do extended content. They did for the Souls series, but yeah, I guess I'm still hurting because I wanted to see more of the world of Bloodborne, and I wanted to play more of Sekiro. And it's kind of a bummer that neither of those things happened yet. But who knows what FromSoft is up to these days?
You talk about bold, right? It's just like just boiling it down to that sword, which I couldn't get enough of. I mean, I thought it was, oh my God, what a game. They really are masters of the craft. I mean, they're incredible.
What's especially strange is FromSoft, they've been weirdos since old times. They were always kind of making games that seemed to come out of left field and just were mechanically wildly experimental. Gosh, 20 years ago, I never would have expected FromSoft to be in the position they're in now, but God bless, they are, which is awesome. And I kind of feel the same way about id Software. I'm kind of glad that you guys are finding a lot of success and really kind of cultivating a home in the game space. There are certain game dev companies that just mean so much to me, and id Software is definitely one of them.
Trying to carve out that lane, like just like, so the expectation isn't like, oh, you're doing PB Rocket again from now on, right? It's like, no, we're doing, we're going to innovate. It's the shooter that makes you think. But let's see how we do that the next time. The thing I have to say that I was just, there was like a peak moment of engagement in Sekiro where I came across one of the many mini bosses on a covered bridge up in the mountains. And I beat him the first time because the game was so simple that I never cheesed anything. I learned the mechanics, obviously, and you kind of have to, but certainly you could cheese some of the stuff. And I just got really good at the basic mechanics that they asked me to get good at. And my reward was beating a mini boss, the first time. And it was fucking amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, oh, you got to learn the trick, which I'm not against that. I mean, we have bosses that have like gimmicks that you have to learn and all that good stuff. But like, I really appreciated that there was just a purity to that experience that you continually felt rewarded for. And then they did such a good job of being like, oh yeah, you think you're good at this.
Yeah, just one quiet person with a spear just destroys you for the next 3 hours.
And they just kept leveling it up, right? You're like, okay, I've got this. I think, you think you got your black belt. You're like, all right, I'm pretty sure that I am like Grandmaster Samurai right now. And then the game's like, no, dude, we're like, you don't even know. You're like you're halfway there, buddy. Like, this is about to get a lot harder.
Yeah, it's that playful spirit, continuously sort of teasing the player. I'm into it. I like it a lot.
Me too. Well, I'll do Neo 2 next.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see how you receive it. Have you found here I am asking more questions. How do you have the ability to play complicated games like that? I don't know. That sounds like a weird question, but again, maybe I'm banking off conventional thinking here, but being a game director of a game series, having a family, needing like time away from all that stuff, how do you find the time to even learn and play games that ask a little bit more of you like that?
Really, really supportive family. That's it. They know that daddy daddy likes to get obsessed about things. And, I mean, it's a good example right now. My wife just signaled to me in the car that we need to go. So they're very, very, well, they were at the market. They just got back. No, I think it's, they're in full support, and honestly, I get the kids into it, and I try to make them a part of the process. So my kids are actively, I have my own QA, staff and my own play testers, and also, and I'm not kidding, I observe a lot of what Doom Eternal came out of watching my son play 2016 Raw for the first time, and then watching the games that he engages with, and kind of just observing, what he finds engaging, and kind of he's 10 years old and daddy lets him play way too many games. But I would say the downside is because daddy is gaming all the time. I have no way to tell them that they're playing too many video games. I mean, it's basically impossible. So, each kid has their own gaming station and they're set up next to dad's. And then I watch him play and just kind of take notes, about like what he gravitates to. And I do think that we have a generation of gamers that I think, Lawrence, you and I, they think like us, like they want, my son, he gravitates to the things that have complexity, that have something to master, that have, that they're complex enough to hold his attention. And I see that when they aren't, he loses interest, So, he transitioned from Fortnite and he searched for a game and he searched for a game. And then where did he land? League of Legends. And is it any surprise? You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's a generation of 40 million chess players, so we can't be offering them up really, really pretty looking checkers. Like they're just not gonna, they're not gonna want it. So, and I'm with him, I do think that there is kind of that generation of gaming, before them that you talked about where games were, should we say demanding, mechanic focused. That's how that's a good way to put it. Mechanic focused games. So yeah, we game a lot at my house and my family is just super, super supportive. And then, and I try to do the dad thing of like from getting up early and then before the house gets insane, that's where dad can game. But that doesn't always work out that way.
All right. Well, thank you for breaking up time to answer the final question. Thank you for talking with me for over almost 2.5 hours. I very much appreciate it, and thank you for all your work. Now, go enjoy your Saturday with your family.
Thank you so much. This was awesome, and thank you for all the fans. Lawrence, thank you for your support. You are definitely a master of the game. Who are you? You're Jimmy Page. You're Eddie Van Halen. Pick one. You're one of them.
Jeez.
You're one of the greats.
You're being too kind. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
And yeah, well, I'll be watching your next stream. And yeah, we stream every Thursday, sort of every Thursday. So I think we're on to the Holt next, which everyone is anxiously awaiting me beating the Sammer fight on Nightmare with a base controller, which should be really interesting. Might be a 4-hour stream. See how it goes.
You'll teach everybody how to do it, right? They can't complain once you do it.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, man. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right. See you around. And yes, thanks again to Hugo Martin for talking about everything. That was awesome. I treasure the moments I get to actually speak with the people who make the things that I enjoy so much because it just helps me understand and appreciate it even more. And thank you guys for watching that. That was awesome. So shout outs again to Hugo Martin and id Software for being so cool about it and making awesome games, which we'll be getting back to right now. Actually, I got to get up and get some water. I got to use the restroom. So 5-minute break and then we'll figure out what's going on with the clock because people are subbing and stuff. So I have the amount of time left, so I'll be able to adjust. But I'll see you guys. Yeah, hydrate time. But yeah, thank you again. Thanks out to everybody. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks to Hugo Martin. Thank you. All right, I'll be right back. See you guys soon.